You can sit wherever you like.
All right. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. As you can see on the agenda request, the purpose of the meeting is to discuss how Rebekah Barsotti's case is being handled by Mineral County Sheriff Department. It is my hope that after this we will be able to move forward and move this case out of the county into state or federal jurisdiction, and I'll explain my reasons why as we go through. First and foremost, the main reason is that on the admission of Sheriff Toth, there is a lack of resources in the county due to the number of deputies, which I understand on September 29th was 6 deputies. There are no investigators and there are no detectives in Mineral County. So the only way to access those is to request them from outside sources. I believe that that hinders the progress in my daughter's case. And Rebekah is actually part of 3 cases here in the county. I don't know if you're aware of that. There was a 911 call on March 9th for domestic abuse, which was followed by a PFMA charge against her estranged husband, David Barsotti, and a standing order of no contact. That case number is TK 595-2021-0000237, and that's from March 10th of 2021. And then Rebekah went missing on July 20th. And that case number is 2021-12676. And then the most recent case brought to your county is a threat on my husband's and myself life, which was reported in Missoula City and got punted to Missoula County and then punted here. And the reason that it got punted, as far as I was informed, is that it is directly tied to Rebekah's missing person case. Okay, so I wanted to discuss that as well. As far as the lack of staffing and resources, that is published on Sheriff Toth's Mineral County Sheriff Office Facebook post. It specifically says that they have limited resources. At the Joint Sheriff's meeting on September 29th, 2021 with Missoula and Mineral County, Sheriff Toth stated we have 6 deputies. We believe that from the onset of Rebekah's missing, there has been a lack of due diligence. The area was not thoroughly assessed at mile marker 72. When we asked if anybody knew the number of trucks or the number of vehicles at mile marker 72, they did not. When we asked if they knew the number of vehicles at St. John's Access Site, they did not have that recorded. And St. John's Access Site has multiple overgrown bushes. If you've been down there during this summer, many of the vehicles you cannot see until you're on top of them because the bushes are so overgrown. Sheriff Toth informed the family that all items at the scene were compromised. With the exception of Rebekah's phone, nothing has been submitted for forensics. The Mineral County Sheriff's Office is now in possession of Rebekah's laptop. This has never been accessed. There was an incomplete search of Rebekah's vehicle at the time of discovery at mile marker 72. The Mineral County deputies did not find a gun in the car. And when I asked Missoula about her gun on July 23rd, they said that it had not been reported. I said, then you have another problem on your hands. So when they went to go get Rebekah's car, they found the gun in the pocket of the driver's door. So that would lead me to believe there was not a thorough investigation of the vehicle. The vehicle itself has never had forensics performed on it. And when Rebekah's statement was released, or when the statement was released about Rebekah missing, there was no context about her being married or being in a domestic abuse situation. That was completely left out of anything that was released to the media or the public. The charges were not acknowledged by law enforcement, but those charges were filed here in Mineral County, and there's an attachment from the Missoulian that you can look at later on your time. On 7/25, Sergeant Funk informed myself and my sister Laura Williams that there were no tracking dogs on land or surrounding areas. The only dogs used were for the water in the riverbank, but they failed to look on land. On 9/29 in the joint meeting, Sheriff Toth said we didn't know what we had. So if you don't know what you have, it would seem to me that you should attempt to rule out foul play instead of just assuming a river accident. Mile marker 72 is a truck stop. It is well attended. It is a recreation area and a fish access area. Interstate 90 is known for an increase in human and drug trafficking. Things to consider: why there were no tracking or scent dogs used at the scene within 72 hours of the event on land. Why have there been no attempts to open and access Rebekah's laptop? And if there's no need for it, then why was it even taken from her trailer in Missoula? Why has law enforcement had Rebekah's car for 4 months and not processed it for forensics? By labeling Rebekah as a river accident, it has obstructed available resources from being accessed. With cadaver dogs being limited to the water in the riverbanks, land was never searched. Cadaver dogs are available from nonprofit groups, but they have to be invited by the sheriff. I cannot personally afford to pay for a team of cadaver dogs to come in and search the area. Sheriff Toth's lack of cooperation to work with search teams results in an obstruction to investigative procedures. If Mineral County does not have the resources to properly and thoroughly investigate, they should reach out to state and/or federal agencies. It's also my understanding that St. John's fishing access appears to be owned by Montana Fish, Game, and Wildlife. Why was the state not invited? There also seems to be a lack of tact and professionalism within the department. On August 4th, Angela and Jerry Mastrovito met with Sheriff Toth, Under Sheriff Cashman, and Sergeant Ryan Funk. Sheriff Toth informed us I was not even going to look for your daughter, exhibiting at the very least lack of tact and professionalism. Rebekah was a victim of domestic violence and with an active PFMA charge against her estranged husband. This alone should have initiated due diligence in regards to investigating this event beyond the river. For examples of conflict of interest within the department, on July 26th, in a phone conversation with Sheriff Toth, he informed me that Cerberus was in poor health and that he trusted the person who informed him of this. The only other person who would know this is David Barsotti, Rebekah's estranged husband. Trusting an individual would lead one to believe the relationship is stronger than an acquaintance. Trust is a quality that you earn. It is not typically freely given. On August 4th, at a meeting with Sheriff Toth and Under Sheriff Cashman and Sergeant Ryan Funk, Sheriff Toth informed us that David did not have a lot of money. An acquaintance is not typically aware of a person's financial situation. Sergeant Ryan Funk admitted to being friends with David and having knowledge of David's background. David reports being an ex-Marine, special ops, and other contracted positions. On October 5th, Angela and Jerry Mastrovito attended a meeting with Sheriff T.J. McDermott and Sergeant Ryan Prather in Missoula. During the meeting, Sheriff Toth emailed me at 11:13, stating he needed to talk to me. David had called requesting Rebekah's guns from the department. During this meeting at Missoula, which we were in from 11 to 12:30, we were informed that Rebekah's personal belongings had been transferred back to Mineral County as of that morning. This creates additional doubts to consider a conflict of interest. How did David know Rebekah's personal items were back in possession of Mineral County? Sheriff Toth had said he hoped that it was a coincidence during a phone conversation. Reports not available and or unwillingness to release information. There was a misfiling of the affidavit of probable cause from Rebekah's domestic call on March 9th. This was discovered on September 22nd and released to the media. This was misfiled for 6 months. On August 16th, myself and my husband requested copies of all public documents and were informed there were none available. On September 22nd, an investigative journalist called to inquire about the affidavit of probable cause, and it was found and released. On November 16th, 2021, my sister Laura Williams submitted a FOIA request for 911 calls placed on July 20th. This request is pending, and the reason given was the information returned to her was for criminal investigation, pending criminal investigation, or closed criminal investigation, and she was informed to submit an additional form, the application of criminal justice information. She has mailed this off, and to date there has been no response. 911 calls are public information according to Montana law. To our knowledge, Rebekah's case has never been treated as a criminal investigation. Sheriff Toth continues to label this case as a river accident. If this is a river, the question to consider here is Rebekah's case a river accident or is it a criminal investigation? Because the answer determines how the case proceeds. Attorney Spencer Bradford has requested a copy of the hard drive for Rebekah's laptop. This does not compromise the chain of command or the integrity. That request was submitted on October 28th. There has been no response. My question is it common practice to use the veil of criminal investigation or pending criminal investigation to avoid accountability and or action? There seems to be an unwillingness to accept assistance from vetted and reputable nonprofit organizations, state and federal agencies. On 7/26, Angela and Jerry Mastrovito verbally requested state and or federal assistance. Request was refused by Sheriff Toth. On 8/4, meeting with Sheriff Toth, Angela and Jerry Mastrovito asked why certain agencies were not accessed, such as Civil Air Patrol and Montana Search and Rescue. Sheriff Toth's answer was no. There was no reason provided for this decision. Rebekah's case was transferred to Missoula County on July 29th. Multiple requests for additional resources were met with a no. Requests for land searches were denied multiple times. On October 30th, I had reached out to have Crime Stoppers participate. Sheriff Toth's request to me was, if we need it, then we will reach out. No further action on his part. Crime Stoppers does not charge for the service provided. As Rebekah's mother, I felt it was imperative because there could be leads out there that no one is coming forward because of fear. And so it would not in any way jeopardize the investigation to have anonymous tips provided. I feel that by not acting on my request, Sheriff Toth was in essence refusing to assist, therefore obstructing access to an additional resource. Brian Frost, missing person specialist from DOJ, was instrumental in assisting me with this request, and Crime Stoppers accepted Rebekah's case November 8th. An additional request refused is to the Find Me group. The Find Me group is a nonprofit organization. It is comprised of active and retired law enforcement. They have linguistic specialists. They have drowning investigators. They are vetted and reputable. They have an established relationship with law enforcement throughout the USA and the world. They use canine and cadaver dogs, trained search and rescue teams, and all of this was denied. It was denied based on the fact that they also use intuits. But oddly enough, Sheriff Mike Toth has recordings on the internet from his own business, Elite Investigations, in Billings, Montana, where he refers to the use of intuits. In 20 years, Find Me has only been refused 16 times. 5 of those refusals are from the United States in 20 years. Sheriff Toth makes the 6th refusal. I personally have reached out to numerous water rescue groups, search and rescue, cadaver teams, scuba diving teams. They all have said, we have to have the sheriff's invitation. I personally do not feel like I have a working relationship with Sheriff Toth that would allow for that to happen. So far, everything has been refused under Sheriff Toth. The only land search that we have had is under the auspices of Captain Bill Burt with Missoula, and that was a one-time event. I want to know if it's commonplace to refuse and reach out to nonprofit agencies for assistance, and if so, why? There is no charge to the community through the taxpayer money or to the county for nonprofit agencies. They come in and they provide their services free of charge. I also would like to know if it's commonplace to refuse and to request assistance from DCI and state and federal agencies when the sheriff is well aware and admittedly states that they have limited resources and staffing to give the case due diligence. Published reports that were either inaccurate or notices from providers. July 23rd, Sheriff Toth changed my daughter's category to recovery. I spoke at depth with Detectives Travis Wofstedt and Kellen Larson in Missoula and asked that it be maintained as a missing person. On September 20th, I received a notice from USAA, my daughter's renter's insurance policy holder, that it had been canceled. I had paid the month of September in full. And when I called to inquire, they told me that it had been reported to them that she was deceased. The only person that can make changes to a policy with USAA are the sponsor. The sponsor is the husband. Attorney Spencer Bradford has requested a copy of all communications from USAA. On September 30th, Sheriff Tosh published that there were extensive land searches. Again, I stand behind the fact that there have not been extensive land searches. There have been riverbank searches. But in my mind, a riverbank search and a land search are two different things. And then, last but not least, on October 31st, 2021, my husband and I received an anonymous call telling us that there was a threat on our life. We thought overnight about that, about how sincere it was, if it was some wacko, somebody just from the community, just somebody taking advantage of us, but we thought it was prudent that we at least file a report. So we went to Missoula City because we were at a Missoula City address when we received that notice. Missoula City punted it to Missoula County, and on the 4th of November, I reached out to Sergeant Ryan Prather. That's when I was notified that it was punted to Missoula County. And at 10:36 p.m., he sent me an email with a detailed report that he had given a handoff to Ellen. On Friday, I called and left a message for Ellen Donahue. I've never received a response. My question is, actually, I also followed up with Missoula FBI. I spoke with Salita and Devin Tier. We also submitted a report to the National Threat Operations Center in Washington, D.C., and I've also spoken to Chief Lee Jackson at DCI. My question is, does Mineral County disregard all reports of potential threats on a person or person's life? Is it common practice to disregard without follow-up? My second question is, shouldn't a threat on the safety and well-being of someone's life be considered a criminal investigation? If Rebekah's missing is a river accident, then why is it related to her case? The actions I'm requesting is to have this case transferred out of this county for the missing person to state or federal agencies. I believe that there is a possibility of relationships established within the department and to Rebekah's estranged husband, David Barsotti, that could compromise the investigation. I believe that the law enforcement department has not accessed what they had the opportunity and due diligence to access, to include laptop information. DCI or Rocky Mountain Labs may be able to access her laptop. We are requesting that Rebekah's case also be amended to remove river accident An email was sent to Sheriff Toth on November 15th requesting this. No one knows if this is a river accident, homicide, or abduction. The label of river accident has limited resources and the investigation process. And as a summary, it is our perception that there has been gross negligence of due diligence by the Mineral County Sheriff Department since the onset of this event. At what point will the department decide to handle this case in a judicious manner and with integrity? If this was your loved one, I believe you would be asking the same, if not similar, questions. The residents of Mineral County deserve the right to feel safe within their community. The residents of Mineral County need assurance that the Sheriff Department is capable of judiciously handling a domestic violence incident as well as a missing person case with whatever it takes. And our goal is to find Rebekah, whatever it takes. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here as long as it takes, and if we do have to leave, there will be people here behind us that will help us. But we are not going anywhere. And I've asked John Baker to speak as well, so if he would come in up. He's a private investigator that we have hired. He's with East Valley Investigative Services.
I'm John Baker. I'm a private investigator. Angela's pretty much hit everything on the head. My main thing as a private investigator coming at this, I don't have access to the case file. I don't know what the sheriff's done or how it's progressed. I understand the limitations of the organization with so few deputies. And that's my main concern in this is the resources available and asking for further resources outside state level, federal level. Initially, the initial call out on the scene, how was it determined that it was a river accident right off the bat? You've got, in my mind, you've got a bunch of different scenarios that have taken place. River, definitely, option. Truck stop abduction, you've got a current DV. There's just a lot of different possibilities, so my concern is how that initially was handled. Why wasn't the vehicle processed? Secondly, who else was at the scene? Other trucks, truck stop, people on the beach. It's July 20th, you know, between 3 and 5. It's a busy time. There's a lot of people down at that beach. The cell towers is a big concern of mine. Why there wasn't a search warrant written. I think that would have been prudent. Even if nothing comes of it, you've got the information of who was in the vicinity. And I don't think it's an extension or an overextension of some of these rights. It's a 2-hour window picking up who's in the vicinity of that cell tower. Something I probably would have done. Another thing, the laptop. It was taken for evidence. It should have been processed. And outside of knowing the specifics in the case, I mean, just concerned to how this is going to develop due to the limitations of the department. That's all it is the resources. I think outside the system should be accessed in this to continue. If there's any questions?
I just here basically on myself, and first thing is recently under Montana law, you can petition. All you have to do is file a petition with the court to get the criminal justice information. So there is a means you can get an order from the court that can get that turned over. And that was enacted and went into effect October 1st. Second thing is living here as long as I have, and I recognize our officers do not get the exposure to these type of cases very often. But as taxpayers, the one thing we have is DCI available to us. And all that takes is a phone call. County attorney or the sheriffs can simply call and say, this is a means, we pay for it. On it, it seems to me that is a way here that, one, it eliminates your concerns that there's some type of bias, which, you know, I don't personally know that I wouldn't believe that to be the case, but they also have the resources to download and to examine the evidence. I worked with those individuals quite a bit and know their capabilities of the investigation. You know, the reason I came here is I do a lot of defending police officers when they're involved in shootings, and a lot of those shooting cases involve suicide by cop. And the one thing in this case that has brought it to my attention, and being a parent, likewise, you know, I can't think of anything more terrifying or wanting to get resolved, whether she be dead or missing or whatever, but some type of conclusion to it. But the one thing here that I have never seen, and I've had a lot of these cases where it's suicide, is where the animal dies as well. Usually a person that's going to commit suicide, in my experience, is the last thing they do is they always take care of their pet. That is such an important thing to them that I've seen it where they literally put the dog into an area where the bullets, when they start flying, will not hurt the pet. And so to me is, one is just where we live and the situation with what normal cases that Mineral County has to deal with, is that this would consume the whole department for a year. You need to have the resources that DCI offers, and it's at no cost of the department or the county on it. And so I think a way to get resolution or getting that is to get DCI involved, allow them to look at it. I didn't hear from the presentation, but it seems to me that, you know, if her estranged husband should be wanting to know where she's at as well. And, you know, I don't know if anybody's asked to, you know, access the property, to just look and see, have a cadaver dog go around it. Likewise, I mean, there's a cloud hanging, just from in this room I can tell there's a cloud hanging around his head that, you know, people are thinking he may have done something. So I would think that, you know, he'd want to clean his name up too if this is truly a suicide type situation or a river accident. I'll be for that. And so to me, the easy way is the commissioners just to direct and ask that the sheriff call DCI, get him in and gets a new fresh look of eyes on it, see what that part of it has, and they have the ability to communicate. You know, FBI has all sorts of resources on it, but you know, there's a woman out there missing, and we've had these in the past with, you know, where the county communities come together to try to locate someone that ended up being killed, and so, you know, I just expect us to do that part of it. And I understand that the sheriff's office here believes they finished it out, but there's still a child missing. And I think that to me is the most important, is making sure that we've done everything that we can do as a community to help find Rebekah for her mom. And it's not asking anything to have DCI or come in and take it over. In fact, probably a benefit to the sheriff's office so that they can focus on what they normally do here. That's exactly why DCI is here. They're designed to come in and help a rural area that, you know, if this was in Missoula, they have detectives and all that resources in it, and they see these type of things, you know, monthly instead of every, you know, this is, I think, back to the last 10, probably 10 years that we've had something like this again. So like I said, I feel terrible for you and your missing daughter, and I also understand the sheriff's situation with their resource issue and what they're able to do, but all it takes is a call to DCI, and I think that we owe it to Rebekah to see that part through. So that's my 2 cents, and I think it helps the sheriffs by getting that case to DCI, and it helps you in moving forward, seeing that something is done. And I know Mike will work with DCI and assist them in any way they can, and likewise for you, it's moving. And I assume right now you feel like you're treading water and not moving forward or backward, but you know, I know Ellen's had a lot of work with DCI, knows those individuals well, and you know, I know there's nothing more important in her heart than dealing with domestic partner assault cases. She takes that very seriously, and I know she takes her job. So when it comes to that, this group that you see, you know, having issues with, it's not that they don't want to help you with it. It is, in my mind, is you just don't have the ability or resources on it and still do what's needed for the county.
And I understand that, and that's why I've been asking all along to process it beyond county level.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, Mike, what is there a problem with just turning it over to DCI in your mind?
So I want her to be done and her speak in that. And then if people want to hear me talk about everything I can, to a point. You also have to understand, the one thing I'll say is, it's supposed to be a missing persons. If it's not, if it's labeled recovery somewhere, again, let me know where. My deputy filled out the paperwork that wherever it gets sent. If he filled out the wrong thing, because even Missoula, missing persons, it's a missing persons case.
Right.
That's how we're looking at it.
Right.
It's a missing persons until she's found, whether she's recovered in the river or recovered somewhere else or found somewhere. It's a missing persons case. So that, if we can fix it, we'll get it fixed.
Okay.
Because it should be a missing persons. We've said that. Missoula, you were in the meeting. Missoula hammered that. So DCI, originally, this all happens in the middle. This all happens like around 5 at night. Okay, it's getting dark. Deputies go out there with highway patrol. They search the banks. They don't see anything. They see the stuff that they get called about. There's some things I can't talk about, but they're well aware of it. They've been briefed on it. We've briefed the family on everything. There's items that lead us to believe that she went into the water. There was no suicide whatsoever in this. So I don't know where that came, but there's no suicide whatsoever. The reason the dog is the dog was playing in the water. We have evidence to show the dog at one point was in the water playing with a stick. So that's where everything's pointing to the river, because we've got items that are neatly set that would say somebody's sitting there enjoying themselves on a hot day with their dog, which is what she does and like to do. So everything matched, everything perfectly.
Can I interject for a minute?
Let me finish.
All right.
You did all the time. I didn't interrupt you.
I'll let you finish.
Take the right notes.
She did that all the time. She did that a lot.
She's missing her kid.
No kidding.
Okay,
I'm just
go
trying
ahead.
to say that's why
Go ahead.
she's upset.
The driver's license and the credit card were perfectly laid out. You couldn't have laid them out better with a ruler.
Right.
Okay, and the whole thing is that the scenario is girl rescues dog. You're not going to take the time to take your driver's license and your credit card out of your pocket.
No.
You're not going to take the time. She wore sunglasses all day long because of nevus on the cornea of her eye. And so she wore sunglasses all day long. So law enforcement looks at the sunglasses and the hat discarded as she threw them off.
The witness that found it says they picked up the driver's license.
What witness?
We're not going to tell you.
Exactly. Wow.
It's because you can't, if you reach out to him, now you're harassing a witness. We know who he is. We know who the family is. We're in contact
And the
with them.
911 caller was an Oregon family?
He's from somewhere.
So Sheriff, maybe rather than get
What I'm saying is,
well,
the
help
witness that calls 911, they admit to picking up items and look, because they're like, what is this?
That's normal.
They pick it up. Then they go, uh-oh, we better set this down. They're the ones that stacked that nice. We're not saying Rebekah stacked that nice. Now, there is, like, the hat and the leash.
Right.
And that there, but, yeah, she probably was enjoying herself. You saw what you saw on the one video.
On the one video. I didn't see we didn't see the dog in the water with the stick. He was on the river.
And the facts here in the thing is, and it's a simple thing, is why not just get DC involved?
So I'm getting to that. So when we think she's in the water, when we finally think we might have somebody in the water, that's what we think we got going. I call Missoula because they're search and rescue and they got divers. So they come out. I call Two Bear Air to search the air right away. I call Flathead County. They've got expert river rescue divers. They start heading down. Kootenai County eventually comes down later on, and she contacts a place out of Missoula or out of Minnesota. Missoula invites them over even. So we don't need no more divers. There's been enough divers in the water. We're risking people's lives now at this point. So when Missoula shows up, their detectives come out. TJ asked me, "What do you need?" I go, "Well, your search and rescue's got the water. I need somebody because I ain't got the manpower to, let's say she's not in the water. I need you to investigate that." And that's what they did. Missoula took it. Missoula took that investigation over from us at that point.
Just let him finish, please.
So we handed that part outside of the river. If she's not in the river, handle this. And so then he put 2 detectives and the sergeant, Planer, and then I can't think of the other 2 detectives' names.
Travis,
Yeah,
Hofstad,
and then the one
Kellen
captain.
Larson,
Yeah, and the commander, whatever.
Dave, I don't remember his last name.
Right.
Dave.
So they take over what happens if she's not in the river, start searching. Now they do bring, because when I was there was cadaver dogs there, and they did search that immediate area up in those bushes and all that. That one guy in Alberton has he trains them, and they brought his dogs in, and then in Missoula County brought their dog in. And I think maybe the city brought a dog, but county for sure. And I know that this guy in Alberton brought 3 dogs in, and one at a time they went through. And when I was there, they all ended up going, and then they went right to the river where her stuff was at, and started barking into the river. And so then, all right, but Missoula takes the outside stuff, which then leads to the trailer and all that. Why that was all taken? You were with them, I agree.
I was outside with the mediator.
We're out of there at that point. We're out of that point. That's their investigation. They grab all that stuff for their investigation, thinking, well, we may need, it's better to have it than not to have it. So they grab it. They don't think there's a need to search it right now because, again, we have a missing persons. So they don't think they need to search it. I know some people are leaning that she was murdered by maybe a family member or not. And so I don't know what the laptop would show with that. The phone didn't show anything. Didn't lead us anywhere, and the phone would be more.
But Mike.
So we called DCI. They only got 1 detective that would come help us. Missoula's got it. Now, if you want me to have DCI come in and review everything we've done, I've got no problem with that. I'll call and ask them. And talk about fish and game. I called them the day it happened and said, this is yours. Oh, we don't want no part of that. Have enjoy. They were all in training. They wouldn't come. The only thing they would do is they'd string yellow tape up on top of that one path.
I saw that and I didn't understand that at all.
That's the only thing they said they would do.
I mean, she wasn't even there at that spot.
Well, because the search and rescue was down there, they didn't want people coming down while they were searching.
Mm-hmm.
They want to keep people back in a way.
Okay.
But they said that's the only thing they would do for us.
I do. I think that there's things that...
I have no problem with having, if you want them to come over and look over and make sure we did, but there's a whole bunch of we've done.
I agree.
That you guys don't know about.
Well, I agree but the one thing is we don't have a body, right? And I know in these investigations is there can be things that develop into it after time goes by.
As we've said, what evidence? There's been no evidence come forward
whatsoever. You have evidence of...
no, we don't.
Just a second. You have an abuse situation that was out there on it, and time has went by, and you have if someone is trying to request and collect a firearm, why is that being? And then has his property? Did you ask to go up and search his property?
So the gun in the car, the reason it wasn't found by my deputies is because they didn't have a search warrant, and they didn't want to get beat up by a defense attorney. But I said, hey, we got an active missing. Pop open her car and see what you can see. He popped the trunk, and he confirmed that what was in the trunk, which was the plastic tote, which is what she met to pick up. Mm-hmm. So we confirmed that story that night. We're like, yep, here's the plastic tote. that David said she came in to pick up. Yep, there it is. And then he gets in front. I don't know what Ryan looked at inside the car. I don't think he looked very much because he knew we were going to tow it and bring it. And if we need to get a warrant, we would. So he closes it up, sends it to tow lot. Then we call Missoula. Missoula says, we take the car. We're taking the outside. We want the car. They take the car, move it to their secured lot, out of the impound lot, out of the tow lot. They take it there, and they either got a warrant or somehow they got in the car, and they find the gun because they do a thorough search of the car at that point in time.
Yeah.
That's how they find the gun, and we don't.
But what I get that part, but then like, you know, I don't know. I'm not.
There's
in-
no
in
evidence.
this-
We have no evidence to lead us up to date. Just because he was charged with the crime 6 months before that or so,
And
that doesn't give us. They're not going through divorce. They're not going through divorce.
Mike, you know as well as I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying is, did anybody ask him? I mean, he's a husband at the time, and he's probably. I would hope that he's concerned about.
He was.
Then so like
He talked to
asking,
us.
is there any
And then
problem
what
with
I
searching?
said to them, be careful what you're saying on Facebook. And what did he do? As soon as he saw him getting labeled as a killer, he lawyered up.
Well,
And then
then
we
He was lawyered
stopped.
up before that.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he
I
You
still
was.
can say what you want, because we were on the phone with him daily. And he was calling us and he was cooperative. And we were gonna get to him. But then he said, look what they're posting on Facebook about me. I said, I can't control that, David.
We didn't post it. Your community
You-
posted
no,
it. Your
And your family members and everybody else who's keep labeling him.
Well, this is
Let's
this is
not
just
forget.
a perfect reason why you get DCI involved. Is the passions on both sides here,
All of them
and you have a common interest of finding
Right.
this woman
Right.
and just
Right.
you know what, turn it over to
But I
DCI.
want to list the things that she says we didn't do that we did do. Because
Okay.
these people need to know, my citizens need to know,
How
What-
did we find her? I don't care what your citizens want.
because then you're going to go off her saying, I didn't do all
right,
this
thank
stuff that she just listed, saying we didn't do anything with
Okay,
that.
so
But
what
it
about the
really
cell
Missoula
phone
did call
man?
the FBI.
How come we can't go ping that day and find out who's there? Because then we're gonna know if the
Do you know
husband was
how
there or not.
many people drive by?
I go
which
there
they were
almost
speaking?
daily. I know
Right.
exactly where this is. I live
I
very close
understand.
to it.
Listen, there's thousands of people on the interstate.
You're right.
that
So
drives
somebody
by
could have picked her up.
There's not that, we don't have the resources.
You don't think
Missoula
they're not
doesn't have
trafficking
resources.
on 90? They are.
No, they don't.
I've been run off the road
You pull
twice
the pin,
by people on that
and there's
road.
no way we have, and we already had an attorney speak of this, that they'll be able to get a warrant for those people. There's no way we can list to get a warrant to get their information.
No,
and
you're
call
right.
it.
But you could ping it and see if her estranged husband was there. And then you'll know.
We
he's
know that for a
involved
fact
or
that
not.
her estranged husband was not there.
Can I say something?
We're 100% positive the husband was not there.
Okay, but can I say
And I
one
can tell
thing?
you we have evidence to lead that.
Okay,
What kind of
guys,
evidence?
we are.
You know that, we told you
But
to.
we're where we're at right now, and we're no closer than where we were when we started. So I think we need to just leave the past behind and go forward and find
I'm with you.
Rebekah. That's the whole goal.
I got another question.
Outside
You
would be
call,
best because both
DCI.
sides clearly are
What?
emotional.
Yes,
about
will
What
you
day did
consider
you
that?
call DCI?
We talked to DCI the day I called Missoula, and I said,
Will
I'm
you
waiting to
bring
see
him
if
in now?
Missoula's going to take
Because
this.
we don't have any record of
Well.
DCI talking to you.
There's clearly a lot of emotion. I think an impartial person
Right.
needs to be.
So what I'm
looking at
saying
this.
is there is evidence that shows David never left his house.
Okay, then an
Is
impartial
it-
person
I
will
mean,
find that
people.
information out.
For me.
Somebody who actually wants to find out the truth and get justice will look at all the information without any emotion and find the
We have
truth.
been.
But
Okay,
see, that's
that's-
not, that's, you are proving right now you have emotion about this.
Okay,
So
so-
if
You're yelling at me
someone
right
else-
now.
Okay, let's give that up on a break, and we will get to the point where we can move forward, but I want to let Ellen have a chance to speak, and then we'll try to see what the options are. Can you request DCI, and are they willing or are they unwilling?
Yeah, I know Lance said usually the county attorney or the sheriff's office. I've usually seen it at the sheriff's office. I assume, that maybe we could do as well. We could invite them in. Federally is different. If we had some kind of indication that maybe she has been trafficked to another state, I know there was a lot of comparisons with the Gabby case,
Right.
where people were saying, well, wait a minute, why? Well, that was on federal property. That was at a federal national park, and also involved potentially
Crossing
state.
state lines.
Right.
This
Yes.
is on I-90 for God's sake.
Yeah, but we don't have
Crossing
any, we
state
don't have
lines.
any evidence that it involves more than one state. So federally, I mean, we could reach out to them, but they're not gonna come and take over the case
In Missoula,
unless
they
we
reach out.
have something, you know, if we
Missoula.
had somebody that, you know, said, oh yeah, oh my God, I think
I
I
thought
saw
he
an
told
arrest
you he
area.
did.
And
No, I called,
Right, but-
and they immediately called Detective Larson and
Right.
said, Angela Mastrovito asked us to participate. And we were informed at that same day that they would be asked if they were needed. They did not reach out to them.
By Missoula.
I reached out, and
Right.
then they contacted Missoula and let them know that I personally called.
Right.
When Kelly went missing in 10, Kelly Merciel, in this county, they brought in some people from Kalispell. And they were amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
And yeah,
So
Well, and that's what we brought.
had-
We brought Flathead County in, and we brought the
And we went to
helicopter
their-
in,
I
and
mean,
then
we
we brought
need help
Cooney
to
County.
find her.
And I appreciate all the water search
then-
efforts.
And then, well, the helicopter searches the land too, and the water.
Right.
But then Missoula had the land-based stuff until they gave it back to us. And at that point, their expertise, and Missoula deals with a lot of cases, said there's no indication or no evidence whatsoever to lead us to believe she's not in the water.
Have they processed the evidence I turned in? Was it ever even,
I don't
I don't
even know
even
what you
know
turned
if
in.
it was turned in.
Well, you don't even know
properly.
what she turned in.
Can I ask
No,
you
I-
a question, sir? The husband or boyfriend, whatever, if he's here in town,
Where is he?
Why is
Why is
what
he
I would
looking
like
for
to
her?
know, somebody's following me around. I am hanging up Rebekah poster after poster after poster, and they're splitting them as soon as I get
That
them
looks
up.
suspicious.
Day after day after day. Don't tell me there's not a man or somebody out here. Why are they doing this?
I don't know.
Maybe
Well,
find out
hey, so there's a guy out here last week flipping us off as
Take
we
a
were
picture of
talking. I got it.
Let's
Oh,
show it to me.
great.
I'll
I
let
got
you
it.
know.
They reported it to the
And
sheriff's
he's flipping us
department.
off and running across the street and yelling at the
Tom.
mother. So we came in and made a report.
Was
What
that-
was done?
was that-
Nothing.
That was the day that,
Nothing.
Was that David?
Her vigil.
no,
Her
no.
vigil.
Do you know who
It
that
one
was?
of his
I-
good
I
friends,
don't.
he said.
So it wasn't
The guy
David.
said it was
I don't
one
know
of
who
his.
it was.
Well, she
That
just said it
does
wasn't
look,
David.
make him look guilty a little bit. I mean,
The guy told
So-
us he
does
was
look
visiting
that
his
way.
best
Ripping them all
friend,
up though, so somebody's
Yeah, I
got
don't know.
something to hide.
Tom. he said his
Sheriff
name
Toth, I'm not here to lynch David specifically.
was. No.
But my concern is that this was limited to a river accident with no other considerations.
So what did Missoula do that they explained to you everything they did to rule David out? And all that stuff Missoula did. They took that part, they were in charge, just like DCI would have been, to do the outside of the river. That's what I asked, because we don't have the manpower
Right, I
to do it.
understand that.
So I reached out to the biggest agency
Right,
that's closest to us, and TJA said yes and assigned 2 detectives, spelled out the hours they put in, all the time they did.
I understand.
So that's what I'm saying, so.
I
now-
would like DCI brought in. I feel that
Well-
there were leads that were given, there were definitely 4 leads that called and left messages at Missoula that they never returned calls. I know that because I have to go back and babysit and contact these people. Did you get to talk to so-and-so? No, they never returned my call. So I'm having to do the follow-up to determine, did you
Right.
get to tell your story?
Right.
And then what we were informed is that somebody asked David what he did that day, and he said he was with friends. End of discussion. But what I'm saying is that there are other things that could have been looked at and weren't. And that is my frustration. And God help the people in this community for the next missing person who happens to be walking along the river, and it's decided that they are a drowning and there is no other consideration. God help them.
Do you have kids?
Let me ask a question. When a person goes missing, you get a phone call saying, I got a missing person. How long do you act? 24 hours? 48
We'll
hours?
send deputies out just like we did here.
Huh?
And we
But at
send
that
deputies
time, we
out.
didn't know, it didn't come in as a
You didn't
missing
know what-
person.
Right, but we sent, and then,
But you claimed it to be a missing person right off the get-go.
well,
How
whether
did
she's
you know she was a
at,
missing
whether she,
person? And how did you know she went in the river?
we didn't,
So how do you
So
call it a
the
missing
deputy-
person?
the deputy called me and said,
And where were you? On
uh,
vacation?
no, I was.
He's in his office.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, and let's, yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know where you
So-
were.
when I got the call.
I'm in my, I'm
Wow.
And
on vacation as well.
I don't know wherever I am every day of the week, you know. Anyways, so I was in my office. Deputy calls, this is what we have. Okay, go with it, let's see what we have. You need to search, get a hold of her spouse, which was David. It's the only one number we had.
Right,
We didn't know who you people were.
right,
Okay.
I understand that.
So we reach out to David. He reaches out to David. David says, no, she's supposed to be living in Missoula. Da-da. David says, what should I do? He says, you need to call her family. Call
And
your
he did.
family and tip them off that something's going on. Something's with Rebekah because we got these items and we got her car. Of course, now we're thinking it's a missing persons, which could be abduction, could be whatever. But with the deputy looking at it, there's no sign of a struggle there. He sees the phone. He hears what the one witness tells him about what the witness saw. And he says, well, it sounds like she's probably in the water.
Was there a witness there when the deputy arrived?
They had left.
They had left. Okay.
How convenient.
So
That place is always busy.
I guess,
always there.
you know, my questions just continue to mount though, because David did contact me at 8:09.
Mhm.
That would be Eastern Standard or Montana time.
Okay.
Okay. So it was after 10 when I got it. I woke up the next morning and got it. But you know, the thing of it is that it was not just, hey, I need to let you know. He was aggravated. I have it in a text message. He was aggravated that somebody would even bother to knock on his door and question him.
Well, David, as you know, has
Yes,
got his quirks.
yes.
Oh, you
So,
got lots of them.
but I'm just saying, you know, I mean, if it, and everybody's saying, oh, they weren't, they were getting back together and they were doing this and they were doing that.
I don't know about that.
They
I just
weren't
know they
getting
haven't-
back together.
I just know they haven't filed
And-
paperwork for divorce.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, it costs
Well,
money
let me-
to
let
file
me-
for
Well, I
divorce.
understand. So
Hold
she
on,
may be
Sheriff.
she may be of getting it, but she
Yeah.
may in her mind told you that. We don't have no evidence of that other than there's no paperwork filed in the court saying
Right.
she was filing for divorce.
Right, I understand that.
Right.
But the thing of it is that to me, the bottom line is that there was a lack of due diligence. Instead of ruling out, there was an
So if we would
assumption
have
the whole
done
way
that,
through.
then you just said, why didn't you rule out the river?
No, I mean, you rule out everything. And so why not, why
Right,
just
and we
take...
did that when I just told you. We had guys in the river and we turned over the outside search to Missoula.
Mhm.
So is that, you do have some
I mean, I don't
concerns about?
understand.
You do?
I misunderstand.
Mike?
And I'm not being, and I'm not, I really want to understand this. And maybe I'm not clicking with me right. But we did want to rule everything out, and that's why I turned the land-based case to Missoula, because they have the deputies and the detectives to do it. And they kind of kept the water case too, but, because they had a bigger search and rescue, but our search and rescue was there, and we were there, and then
Right, there were several water
Right,
search and
searches
rescue
there.
teams.
So my understanding is, I was trying to cover all bases by having Missoula take over. Now, if you're saying you don't like what they did with the land-based search or their land-based investigation, then I'll call DCI. I have no problem.
I would appreciate if DCI
But I
was
trust
called.
Missoula's expertise on this, but I'll
I
have
mean, the
them-
land-based search didn't include any, it was phone work, computer work, and...
Right, because we have no evidence of anything else right now.
They exhausted all leads we had.
All
They had.
feasible leads.
But they didn't find her in the water.
I gave her
All
a
those
lead on
reasons.
land.
Right.
I think she'd be
We
trafficked.
understand that, there could be several
And
There's so
people
much traffic.
don't
It's
always come up.
ridiculous.
So do we only look
What
by the
percentage
river,
of
or
them
do we
did?
go elsewhere?
We have to have evidence to go
Elsewhere.
elsewhere,
Or we just be
information
searching randomly.
to go elsewhere.
Where are we gonna
We didn't have
search?
evidence to go on the river.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we-
What we saw there led us to
saw
believe
So
it.
you
Okay,
have
I
to
saw
have
bloody
evidence.
clothes
Hold
in
on.
the woods
Or
and
leads,
nobody
somebody
looked.
said
2 weeks after that, we had a search group out there. They found clothes on the
And
river.
they weren't hers.
Huh?
And they weren't hers.
Why didn't you treat those clothes as a person that went in the river?
By force or against.
Because they probably got lost from
Anywhere.
a boater or something that tipped over or something.
So you treat
So the-
cases as you see fit.
Sure, if you want to say that.
No, you-
As our expertise leads us to believe
So,
what it is.
so you can, so we'll just, so
We
you've
will call
had
DCI.
concerns, you said Missoula County's received leads, and they haven't called them back, and you've had to follow up.
I had to
for
follow
them.
up, and so then they've been referred to my PI
Okay.
or to here.
So if you have a little bit of lack of confidence in both departments, then Sheriff Toth said you would call in DCI then, Mike?
Yeah, what you said tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Just on a side note, my personal website you want to talk about? That's what I warned you guys about psychics. That was my client, paid for all that, and got them nothing. But it made the news, so I put it on my website that this was done. And I warned you guys, psychics, especially now that you got the reward, I think if you're going to work with psychics, I hope you're not paying them if they're working for free. But if they say they found her, or they think they know where she is, say, well, there's a reward. You go find her and then call law enforcement, and then you'll get whatever the reward is.
So that's
Because they'll stop calling you when they realize they're not going to get any money from you.
Well,
Except the one company that you're talking about.
Find Me
doesn't.
Group. They're
But as soon as they
bad.
said the psychic to me, I said, well, what are, and then he says, well, our psychics believe she's in the water.
so we'll end on the note that you'll try to have DCI.
I'll call DCI tonight.
Check into, I mean, this is still an open case. It's
I'll
a
see if
missing
they'll send a
person case.
detective over.
It doesn't mean that you're concluding anything. It's
I'll
a
meet with-
missing person.
I'll have DCI detective come over.
And then,
I'll meet, I'll ask you and your husband only to come in,
Okay.
or your attorney too, whatever.
Okay.
To meet, only the attorney though, to meet with
Okay.
them, and we can do whatever.
Thank you.
As long as Ellen doesn't have a problem with that. I don't think she'll mind.
No, I'm fine with that. yeah.
Seeing how this is still a missing case, can we get a copy of the hard drive through our attorney?
Well, we're gonna talk to DCI now.
He's requested it.
I
He's
understand.
requested it
Yeah.
a while ago.
I know he did when we were there.
Yeah, he
And-
mentioned that.
and-
He said he didn't
and
even have
because
to
of-
access it because I didn't understand
And
that.
again, because, yeah, we thought, because it's still an open case, I think they're gonna say no, but we'll ask them.
Why?
Okay.
Because it's an open case.
Because they're the parent.
I know, but it's an open case and now it's.
yeah, and it's not just the sheriff. There's
Right.
legal, I mean, the
There's
county
legal
attorney is
reasons.
also advising the sheriff what to let go and what
Right.
not.
I know what
It's not just one person
Because he
deciding
would butcher us.
unilaterally. It's a team here,
He
and the
plays.
team has to maintain things are safe.
But he
If
would-
DCI does come in, nothing's been tainted or let out
Right,
of the
there's a
bag.
chain of command and a chain of
This
integrity. I
man
understand
is
that.
awesome.
And I think your
But you can
attorney
say, why did you
said
share it?
that he could
No, it's
somehow,
He can copy the hard
And
drive
not-
without compromising.
yes, and not
You better
accessing
make
it.
that
Right,
right.
not
Yeah,
accessing.
yes, that's what I wanted to make
We
sure.
have a lady with her hand up, one question, then we'll let Ellen close the meeting, and we'll end on that happy note. But go ahead, ma'am, you've had
It's
your
not
hand
so
up.
much a question, but within this community, I hear a lot of people from where I volunteer. And within this community, people are very nervous and very afraid that there could be a trafficker or a murder or et cetera in this county. People are scared. They don't feel like law enforcement is doing their job because people have called, nothing gets done, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't know this. I have
Called
no
on this case or other
idea you're
cases?
into it.
Call on this case or other
I-
cases?
This
That
and
is
other,
so
but,
open-ended that it's actually insulting.
well,
Okay?
I have,
And we can't
I like
control
my law enforcement
what people
in general.
do, but I can tell you this.
Okay,
When the phone rings, we go.
okay.
We've made
Deputies
great
made it
strides since we've been
I've had my
here
hand up for a
to
long
ensure this
time.
Yeah,
happens.
right.
All I'm saying is that it has spread throughout the community where there's a sense of uneasiness.
Because people that don't understand about the case and what we can release are on Facebook every other day, spreading about stuff that they don't know what they're talking about,
But
that
mine
is
was right
upsetting the
out here.
family,
Mine was
is
right out
upsetting
here.
the family in
In front
that.
of the courthouse.
Right,
Mine was
and you
out
showed her
here.
the picture, and it wasn't David, and you talked to a deputy, you reported it?
Yeah, my friend that was with me did, yes.
Okay,
And nothing was done, nothing.
well, how do you know
Okay.
yet? We just got it.
When
You guys were
did
just
it-
here Wednesday.
You don't even know my name, you don't even know who I am.
Well, I don't know every case that comes in.
Okay, so
So
that's
the-
my
I don't
point.
care who these
So-
guys are. Let's just focus on what is next for Rebekah.
The next thing, and the county attorney and the sheriff are going to call DCI, which adds a state resource, and hopefully they will pick up what's been learned so far and follow through. But, I mean, Mineral County has always been a small county with limited resources. I mean, we had a train spill in '96 where all this chlorine went everywhere, and our little department couldn't handle the evacuation. We did. We relied on Missoula County to come. We had a hostage situation in a bar in Alberton. We didn't have a SWAT team. Missoula County came in and helped us handle it. So it's not unusual that we have something major that we do have to tap into other people's resources with their detectives and their investigators and their dogs. And so I'm glad that Missoula County was involved. And some of these questions I'm just learning about today too, but there are procedures and steps that the county attorney knows. You have to maintain evidence and you have, you know, the laptop thing I'm not sure about, but if you guys get together with DCI and he says that's fine, but if the sheriff goes and just gives it to people without, and then later it can or cannot be used, I mean, things get jeopardized if you don't go through the steps. But also I am very sorry for you because, I mean, the lack of closure must be unbearable. I'm sorry.
And we have called DCI before. We're not scared to call DCI. They worked a homicide for us here
This year,
for us.
they've gone
in
up
St.
and
Regis
recovered bones from
for
missing
us.
persons.
For
In
another
a case
missing
6 years ago above
that was found
the
finally.
rest area.
So, I mean, it's not that I did. It's that Missoula was handling. So there's no reason now to bring a third party in. Now I'll bring them in and say, the family wants you to review everything we've done. Is everything's been done? Does anything more need to be done that you see? And they can visit with you and
They can
visit
do more.
with us. And hopefully they can
If
do,
there's
if they see
information to
fit,
act on,
they'll
absolutely.
look at what the case file is. They'll talk to her and her husband and their private investigator and probably visit with me and Ellen, and then they'll determine what they can do or can't do.
Anything you wanted to say, Ellen, before we adjourn?
No, not really, other than, you know, if something does come, if we get some information, we will look into it. I did put a hold or continue the preservation that I told you I'd do. That's all
Thank you.
preserved. What we're hoping is when I was in touch with, I think it was actually Prather that I talked, it might have been Detective Larson. We're hoping, technically, our understanding is you can only get 2 90-day holds.
Okay.
On the information. We're thinking that now that since we've taken over, they'll only count this as my first.
Okay.
So I have it calendared, probably a week or
Okay.
2 before the 90 days are up, to put in another request.
Okay.
But I've gotten that all. I not only faxed it, I emailed them
Okay.
to make sure that, so we've got that